Hi, everyone. It is noon, so we're going to call the Livability Committee meeting to order. Today we are discussing updates on Adopt a Block and then the establishment of a mission statement for this meeting, but we're going to start with introductions. So, Chief, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm Chris Chapman. I'm the Chief of Police at Coos Bay.
And Harv Shabothi with the Coos Bay Downtown Association.
Jim Barron's Empire Community Coalition.
Major David Kaufman, Salvation Army.
Stephanie Kilmer, Coos Bay City Councilor and Co-Chair.
Sarah Stevens, Coos Bay City Councilor.
Scott Cooper, Alternative Youth Activities.
John Sweet, Coos County.
Nicole Rutherford, City of Coos Bay.
Ryan Tuss, citizen of Coos Bay.
Christine Sylvester, City of Coos Bay.
Great. We've got a couple of folks in the audience. Thanks for being here. So we received a couple of, and you have a packet in front of you. So we did receive a couple of things to review, but let's start with something fun and talk about Adopt a Block signups and creating marketing for inclusion in water sewer bill mailing. It is a quick reminder. In our last meeting, we all committed to signing up for Adopt a Block and coming back with any observations that we have about that. And then Nicole was going to do some investigation about getting a flyer in the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board bill. Nicole?
Yes, thank you. So first, who did their homework and signed up for adopting a block?
I went there and I was gonna sign up, but I couldn't remember which block I wanted to do. No, I'm just kidding, but I did go there. I planned to adopt a block.
I cheated and did this block. It's usually pretty clean.
Yeah, sometimes it's just taking something around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten my package yet. I don't know how long that takes, but it was a relatively easy process. You kind of get a map, you can kind of select, it tells you what's available, what's not available. You can add, you can pick the things that you would need. So it was pretty easy. As far as the water board, I will say thanks to Christine. She's the one who did the legwork on this. We have roughly 7,500 or so customers who get paper bills. So that's something that we could, put something in there at about 10 cents for each. That's a roughly 766, dollars. So that's an option. Knowing what our budget looks like, we might want to just do that once. But it is something we could consider doing if we're trying to reach a larger group. Outside of that, what else do we could certainly hit all of our, we already talked about all the platforms that we use anyways. And then maybe even ask some of our partners who do adjacent work to this to kind of help us advertise this in ways. So that might be, working with the Downtown Association and OBAB, the folks who are kind of doing things like this to see if we can get some help. The Community Coalition of Empire, those folks. So.
And this, in the packet, there's a mock-up of an Adopt a Block ad. Great.
And we can certainly do that for our organization. I'm sure the chamber and some of the others would be happy to step up as well.
I was just gonna suggest that we make it super easy instead of a copy and paste like that we make it super easy for somebody just to stick their phone on it and go to a QR code. And I think it's gonna have to be a little bit more aggressive than passive with a flyer. So I don't know if we can do some sort of a video or something that just get people out doing it and showing how easy it is. As opposed to just something like this.
And I think this is just a piece from their side.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a block blocks in Coos Bay are not like blocks on the east side of the country. They're like 5 of our blocks. It's very small here. It doesn't really take a whole lot of time. So,
When I went on there, there's also a Facebook page for the Adopt One Block. And so I, of course, followed their page. There's a lot of interaction on there, so that might be an avenue as well.
We are having sorry, we're having some preliminary conversations about how we can use our depth of experience in video and audio that we have within our staff for folks who use different platforms already to kind of build out some of this. I recently kind of listened to a podcast where there are cities who are kind of giving their younger, and I hate to give us some dimension to this, but they're younger staff members who are doing some of these platforms, set aside some time in their days on a regular basis that they can be creating content. They are the expert, and also they're probably the best person to talk about the city because of their work here. So, and then our library is rock stars as far as getting different types of marketing materials out there in all the ways. They're doing podcasts and videos. And so I think we have some skills here. We could contemplate that.
Great. I think there's always like a healthy competition too. So if we get, I know for me, I just signed up last night, knowing this meeting was coming, full disclosure. So, maybe in the next month or so, there can be like, look at how many new signups we have, because it looks like on the map, it's almost like highlighted, right? The areas that there's some good visuals there. Ryan, you said you signed up. Any observations?
Yeah, so I signed up maybe about a year ago. And I was able to increase my blockage, I also signed it up for a organization that I manage their office in North Bend, and we took up like 2 blocks in North Bend. So some of our office volunteers, they come in, and that's one thing they do is they go out and walk the block, and it's been great. My one suggestion leading into this meeting that I was thinking about, instead of just like trying to reach out to individuals, which is great, but also our community organizations, churches, clubs, and then having it kind of filter down from there. So
That's great.
that's a great suggestion, because there are a lot of churches in neighborhoods where we have some issues with sidewalks. And so that's a great idea.
Yeah. And Harv, you said that you would promote it through your organizations. Maybe we can get some downtown businesses signed up. Cool. Great.
And I think sometimes if you have incentives on there, maybe we can partner with a business that wants to help sponsor getting this information out, so that the city isn't fully burdened with trying to fund it. And then also on the competition end, maybe some sort of if we can get certain areas covered, maybe we do some sort of a block party or something.
I love block parties.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so it sounds like a couple of us have a job to do to get on there and follow through with the commitment to sign up. I see a few of us are doing it while in a multitasking fashion right now, which I can appreciate. So great. Let's continue to think about how we can promote this. Moving into a discussion about the mission statement for the Livability Committee. I think we had 3 or 4, maybe 5 different people. Just as a reminder, we decided to revisit the discussion on defining a mission statement, incorporating member input from the previous meeting. There's a belief that a well-crafted mission statement will help shape future agenda topics and guide the committee's efforts in addressing key livability concerns within the city. And I think this came up because there were some ideas brought forward by city staff, and then that led us to questioning what kinds of things is the Livability Committee going to tackle? And so we have a couple here. Leslie Terry had a sentiment that she liked what Laura Ursig had sent in, but suggested that it get pared down some. And it tells more about what is done, not necessarily how. David Kaufman shared identifying and solving problems and concerns relating. Maybe you want to read it.
Yeah. I think I put relating and affecting. Either
Okay,
one
yeah.
explains the well-being and quality of life of individuals in our community. And I'm adding on to what I read in other emails.
Yeah, great. So to enhance the built and natural environments, economic prosperity, social stability, education, culture, entertainment and recreation possibilities.
And that's the website where I found all that.
Oh, great. So there's a printout here that, what is livability? Livability is the sum of the factors that add up to a community's quality of life, including the built and natural environments, economic prosperity, social stability, equity, educational opportunity, cultural entertainment, and recreational possibilities. And then I think there was one, Jim, do you want to read yours?
I didn't bring mine with me.
Oh, it's in the packet.
Last page.
It's the last
very
page.
Last page.
Don't see it.
No, it'll be.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I can read it. Here. I can read it. Yeah.
The mission of the Livability Committee is to enhance the quality of life of all residents by fostering a vibrant, safe, and sustainable community. We aim to achieve this through collaboration with community members, local business, and regional stakeholders. But I actually like the majors better.
Okay, okay, fair. And then Laura had sent one shortly after our last meeting. Ryan, do you have that in front of you? Do you want to read that one? Yeah.
Laura says, I believe we could send ideas for the Livability Committee's mission statement to you. Here are a few of my passing thoughts. The mission of Livability Committee is to create an avenue for community members to work alongside the city and community leaders to address issues of livability through creative collaborative solutions. Livability is defined as the physical spaces, policies, and sense of belonging where we create formal and informal structures. Maybe more will come later, but at least I remember to get something done.
Great.
I whispered to you, but I think
Yeah.
it's important to note that all of the submissions really contain the same basis among it and the quality of life and working together. I agree with Terry that I think it needs to be very simple. And I think that we could take pieces of all of these and really make it one, because the premise and the underlying premise is the same throughout.
Major Kaufman's, instead of individuals, if you put stakeholders in our community, would probably take care of short and sweet. He also gave us some vision, which is something that usually sees these two issues being hand in hand. So I think that one kind of is a way to just get this done.
So looking at, sorry, go ahead.
Can I have a last minute?
Yes, please.
Addition?
Yeah.
I just made this up, so we can maybe be gracious. How about, because we live where we love, we are focused on loving where we live.
Can you read it one more time, Nicole?
Because we live where we love, we are focused on loving where we live.
For the sentence, I think that's fantastic.
Just have it.
Do you think, so there's the mission, vision, and then there's usually like a tagline statement
Yeah,
that almost feels like that.
it's a little, it's probably long for that, but yeah.
For tagline, I think.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if we go back to David's, David, do you want to read that one more time for us?
Sure. Mission, identifying and solving problems and concerns relating to the well-being and quality of life of stakeholders in our community.
I have a question about the term stakeholders. Is that just people who own property in our community? Like, is that understood that it's everyone?
It's everyone. Definition I've been working with for a long, long time is that's everyone. That's the broadest net you can throw. And not be real, trying to identify, well, this group of people and this group of people, you just lump them into that one category.
Stakeholders in my realm of the world are people who are invested in the same outcome in the nonprofit world.
Stakeholder is a person or group or organization that has an interest in a business or project and its outcomes.
I can't find a good synonym or alternative either. Well, Google can't.
That's okay. I mean, I think it's something different when I hear that word.
No, it's good to call that out because we want it to
Include everyone.
include everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it should.
If I might, a stakeholder is anyone who has a stake in the process or the procedure or, the stake in the game.
So to read again, identifying and solving problems and concerns related to the well-being and quality of life of individuals and stakeholders in our community.
Or you could just take out individuals and say all stakeholders or all, because
For all in our group.
All members.
For all, just for all.
for all,
Cause then you don't have an interpretation issue.
right?
Mhm.
They don't have to own property. They can be somebody that just comes to our area that walks the boardwalk because they love the view.
Mhm.
You know, I would consider those people stakeholders as well.
How do we feel about the vision to enhance the built and natural environments, economic prosperity, social stability, education, culture, entertainment, and recreational possibilities? Is there anything that we would take out or anything that we would add? When I looked up other livability committees around the nation, public safety is called out in many of them, which may or may not, but just because it's in other places doesn't mean that that's part of this now, but what do you think, Chief?
I would agree with that. I think that there's a public safety component to livability. It is kind of a unique term that we use in law enforcement, livability. It may mean a little bit different to community members or to this group. So I'm also learning what livability means to everybody that participates in our community and is a stakeholder in our community. It may mean a little bit different to public safety, but I think public safety has a definite component in that livability.
Do you see us adding that? So built in natural environments, economic prosperity, social stability, education, culture, entertainment, recreational possibilities, public safety.
And a safer community or something.
Because I'm not sure that it's called out necessarily in any of these
Yeah.
yet.
No,
And
I agree
think
with
that was kind of one of the things that spurred the ask for this committee. It was one of those, we want people to feel safe too while they're doing all those
And
things.
I'm thinking the same thing. It may not be public safety, but just the concept of safety is, I think what you're saying, Steph.
Because it says the vision, and I like that you added this, David, to enhance, right? So there's like an action there. And so safety could accompany a bunch of things.
Enhance community safety. I
Mhm.
mean, if we don't want to necessarily pay public safety, but maybe community safety.
Is it? That could then tie to like our built environments safety, our buildings are not just people, but things. Yeah.
I suggest something to a degree, and maybe not listing particulars. Because you're bound to leave something out. And, excuse me, just say enhancing the quality of life in our community. That includes a lot of things, and we don't have to define them. Whatever shows up.
And along those lines, when you talk about safety, well-being, welfare, security, those are all, they encompass kind of all of those things we're talking about.
Yeah, the list would go on from here until I don't know what.
Forever.
I tried to include everything, so
I think that was maybe the point though,
Oh,
was to
be
get,
specific.
was to get to a place where we could say, if, let's say, someone brought a topic to livability, we would have the opportunity to say, that is an important topic, but that needs to go to a different committee. Because at some point, like this committee can't tackle everything. And I know, I think the discussion came up because we were talking about the camping regulation and assessing the Ackerman. And that is currently a allowable area. And then that led us into a discussion about, well, what is this, and I think maybe at that point, we were a bit tired of talking about that specific topic. I think that has since, we've talked about some other things, and so we might have more appetite to bring that back to the table. But I think part of us wanting to get a bit specific here is to be able to say, yes, that is something the committee wants to tackle, or no, it doesn't. And that could happen still with your suggestion, John, quality of life, because that's up for interpretation, right? So that could still leave it open for us to make the choice. But I think the reason we got here to wanting to define a mission statement was because we wanted to define more about what this committee is going to tackle.
Yeah. Along those lines, as I look at this list, for example, I see recreation on there. At what point is that do you bring an issue here, or do you bring that to Parks and Recreation?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's the
Yeah.
discussion we need to have, because like, for example, I think livability, for me, I could go to multimodal transport, but we know that we have a subcommittee within parks that are focused on that. And so,
yeah.
so we don't necessarily need to duplicate efforts either.
So really what we need to do is take a look at what the city has already in committee.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about safety, this committee is probably one that would address something like, because they are representing the community, and that means places where people walk and access parks and things like that. But they, if there are issues on pathways, that camping and those things might be something that needs to come through this committee, because there isn't a committee that addresses that.
Yep.
And so even though we may not want to be talking about that all the time, that doesn't mean that we have to do that. But it also helps the council, which is an elected group that's smaller, hear from a larger group that touches different parts of our community. And so it makes sense that something like that might come to this committee for a recommendation to the council, because they've been able to vet it.
Because thinking a bit about history and how we got here at one point, and you can speak to this better because you were on it, is that there was a committee specific to housing and homelessness, or homelessness specifically.
It was a work group.
A work
or-
group.
Yeah.
And that has since evolved into something different in the community, leaving specifically maybe some gaps for the city specifically.
Mhm. Yeah, and a lot of good things came from that group because they were able to, the staff was able to present, hey, we have this going on. This group was able to talk about it, take a look at it, and then come back, refine, and then make a recommendation. So, and
So-
it worked well. I want to say probably, well, the original camping ordinance came from the homeless work group.
Vacant property registration, the community resource officer, and this is like a list of 12 or 13 different initiatives that went through that
That went
group.
through that committee.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'd want to recreate that, because I think this is more than that,
Mhm.
but maybe there's a component of that. And
Yeah.
so, Nicole, when you think about the committees that exist in the city already, I'm wondering, like, thinking about recreational possibilities, do you feel like that is covered by parks?
Partially, I guess there could be recreational opportunities outside of parks. I don't want us to take a step back necessarily, but kind of just listening to this conversation, that causes me a little bit of heartburn now about what we're saying in the mission statement. If we are solving problems rather than identifying solutions because we ourselves will not be applying those solutions. So using the right language there, I think, you don't want to set us up for
Like
failure.
it? Yeah, that's great.
And again, I would say the same thing with like we do with recreational, like the built and natural environments. How much of that might be could be some parks there. Is some of that planning with the design of what our community is built like, design elements do encourage or discourage certain behaviors. So there's some adjacent work. Is it the same? It's not quite the same, but.
Yeah, that's a good point. Harv, what about if we look at the point about entertainment? I guess when I think about entertainment related to the city, I think about festivals and things. Do you feel like that's the role of the downtown association, or is there a role for this committee there also?
Well, and entertainment can be really, really broad, and we take a look at that because I'm thinking we got the festivals, of course, but somebody might say that what we're doing with the museum and the gallery isn't that entertainment to some extent as well.
Mhm.
And then where's the responsibility lie, and where do you go for those kinds of issues?
Mhm.
Because I think some of that is some of that we do, but we focus on the downtown. There's a whole bunch of other festivals and theaters and things that aren't in the downtown, so.
Mhm. Yeah.
It almost feels like that is a business or a combination of business and organizations that work on that. Whether it's like the museum or the Egyptian theater or those types of venues or festivals that are put on by groups. Because it's not just the downtown association, there's other nonprofits that do. So it almost feels like that's handled
But that's where I got to the solutions.
Mhm.
So we would talk about, oh, we would love to get a concert here. How do we do that? Well, we talk to our partners. We've identified an issue and a potential solution, and then we go out and we find the people who solve the problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it's valid to keep all these things on here, even if there is work that others do, because we are, again, identifying the problem, coming up with the potential, presenting that too.
Yeah.
It could be council, could come to council if we find something that's valid to go that way, but it could also be engaging our partners.
Or like an art installation and then engaging partners to try to help move something forward or
Mhm.
So Nicole, what phrasing are you looking for exactly there?
I'm just saying, like, I would love to change solving because that's like, feels like we're doing the work rather than identifying solutions.
I agree.
And then the vision, I think we just leave, those are great. Maybe we're adding that community safety
could
piece,
say-
but
And if you're gonna take, whoops, sorry.
You could say engage partnerships to enhance.
And instead of saying we're focusing on, because that statement focuses on the negative, you could say identifying enhancements, problems, or concerns. Something like that. Just seems like we should have a positive statement in there if you're gonna put entertainment, because I don't think there's a negative thing in entertainment. It's something positive.
What about, I don't want to get like too deep in the woods of semantics, but education. I think about like
yeah,
K-12, or should it say community education?
yeah, I think that's great. There's a whole bunch of things I'd love the community to learn.
David, I love that you did this because I know and maybe others feel this way, but I work best when I have at least a template to then get to adapt.
Yeah.
So thank you for providing that. Yeah.
Actually, that website that's listed here, they did 90% of the work on.
Yeah, but you put it on the paper. You found the website, you put it on the paper. Yeah, take the credit.
Why read?
That's exactly this. You provided a solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott, you're pretty quiet today. That's unusual.
I am, no, I'm contemplating this, and let me just reiterate what I'm hearing. First, I start with this, I'm hearing a commitment, oh my God. We are looking to box in or box out because we serve at the will of the council, and we're trying to alleviate some of the things that don't have a specific spot that are already funneling through. I think we need to make sure that we're boxing some things out and boxing other things in and being specific, but that's amongst us. And if we put a statement in there that the council will tell us what they need help with type of thing, and that doesn't need to be mission or anything like that. I'm just kind of like, if we left it out to Dean, we'd be talking about bicycles all the time, right? And Sea Cadets, let's not forget Sea Cadets.
Guided by the city council.
Yeah, so a guide.
So then I wonder, do we go back to John's suggestion? Because if we're too specific, then that can sometimes get us into a place where then I mean, right? I mean, that's why we've got this great team of great minds to come up with what's best. But what you're saying makes sense, and it makes me sound, it kind of leans me back towards John's suggestion of just quality of life.
One thing you might consider is avoid being specific, but serve as kind of a clearinghouse where anyone can come. And if it's a problem that's already being dealt with by the parks, yeah, we have a department for that, or that's a great suggestion. We'll tell our parks department, or you can go to one of their meetings. Or that's a good idea. We really haven't any way to deal with that. Let us take that on ourselves and come up with some ideas. Or we can bring our own problems, because certainly we wouldn't be here if we weren't seeing problems, things that we would like to have changed.
Yeah, good point.
And I still would. I mean, whatever you do is going to be great, but
I
would
was
keep
gonna
it-
also
I
say
would
that
keep it
a lot
simple.
of times our staff hears more than we do, or the council does as a whole. they have people that stop in here and say, hey, you know, I got this going on. So they have a collection of things that this committee could deal with. And it almost needs to have that recommendation from our staff, because we're, you know, we're going away from here doing our jobs, our other day jobs, but they're here every day, you know, so maybe we need to have that clearinghouse include.
I'm liking this. Every problem is an opportunity. But to bog down certain systems is where I think we could be useful. How do we redirect or take it on? So I'm liking where we're at it now. Because boxing things out and boxing things in just, it's too defined. I'm not used to lines. It's a box. I don't live in boxes.
So to go back, just to start from the top, we're talking about, and I don't think I've captured all of the notes, so help me. Identifying, are we gonna leave out concerns, but identifying solutions relating to the well-being and quality of life for all in our community.
Or are we just enhancing quality of life in our community?
Enhancing. So it could say enhancing the well-being and quality of life for all in our community.
Or
what your
it is
suggestion
just enhancing the quality of life in our community. Like that is the mission statement in its entirety. And there's no boxes, a whole bunch of gray areas.
You know, was involved with the Ford Family Foundation for several years. And we had these enormous statements, enormous. Yeah, even worse than that, if you can imagine. Eventually, they've since screwed up and changed it again, but we had it narrowed down to two things: successful citizens and vital rural communities. Those were our missions. Gave us a lot of room to do a lot of work. People could come to us. It wasn't terribly limiting. If it's something that we weren't going to do, we'd tell them. If it's something that we felt was important, we tried to take it on. It gave us the ability to deal with a broad range of grants. It gave us the ability to really take on certain projects that we thought were important, that we as a group here think are important. It offered a lot of flexibility, and so I like simplicity for whatever it's worth.
And you can say it in less than
And I don't
7
like the way
seconds.
and I like the way you said it. I don't want to be boxed in or boxed out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can say, no, we've tried that. We're not going to do that. Or, well, that's parks, or go over to Salvation Army. They got a great program for that. And,
So to read it again, enhancing the quality of life in our community.
For all in on.
I said ours, it just,
Yeah. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. Or, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
7.
6, 7 words.
Enhancing quality of life in our community.
It's almost
In our
as good as
community
Dr.
can-
Seuss.
Pardon me?
Almost as good as Dr. Seuss.
I'm too old for Dr. Seuss.
What Cat in the Hat, I believe he only uses like 22 words in the whole book.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So,
You know, to John, to your point, it's something I learned in the Ford leadership was the storming forming phase, right? And I think that's what we did here today was
Yeah.
we like put some things up and then landed in a different place. And that's what's so lovely about groups like this is that we get to come together and do that and have that discussion and then all have the buy-in and be able to, I mean, this is something that I think we can memorize and if someone were to say, hey, Ryan, what is the Livability Committee? I see you're on that. You could probably remember that pretty easily and be able to share that. And then you wouldn't be boxed in to say, well, we do this, but we don't do this. Like bring us an idea. We'll see if we can tackle it. So can I get consensus on enhancing? I want to put a
you
thought
wanna-
in there, but
you want a
enhancing
motion?
quality of life in our community.
Do you want a motion on that?
Sure, yeah, I'll take a motion.
I move that we recommend, do we have to go through the council or can we just adopt this?
That is a great question, one in which Nate probably has a good answer for.
Okay. All right, I move that we adopt the mission statement, enhancing quality of life in our community.
Second,
Great, all in favor?
aye.
I,
Any opposed?
Well, I changed my mind.
Okay, Nicole will find out if we can adopt this. Maybe Christine, we could add this to the agendas would be awesome, just so we can all get it to memory. And then we've got a couple of minutes before 1 o'clock. And so Nicole, there was a couple of things, and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but there were a couple of things that we were thinking about bringing to this committee. Do you remember what those were?
Well, I know we were going to, and we just keep bumping it, have Luke from Waste Management come in and have a conversation with us. We're on the verge of some really interesting opportunities, depending on what you think an opportunity is. With recycling, there's some kind of mandated participation coming down, both for cities and communities and haulers, producers, all that. Because of that, it's just sitting right there on the edge. We've kind of been pushing this out because we're waiting to get a little bit more details on what that's going to look like. It's kind of garbage, it's kind of related, but he's ready to
Okay.
come. We just have been kind of, maybe we wait a minute so he could kind of talk to that.
I did have a constituent reach out and email me about a program relating to solid waste recycling and composting that she was part of in a community that she lived in previously. So it would be interesting to.
Yeah, maybe
Have
know
that
a little
shared.
bit more about what that is.
Mhm.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's something else. I feel like there was.
And then
another
there was
topic.
the conversation about revisiting the camping locations.
Yes, and so we kind of are talking about that internally with department heads, and we'll come. What we're trying to wrap our head around is the language that would make sense why we might be altering for some specific locations. What we understand is the selection that was made was specific to zones. So like a commercial zone, a industrial zone, those kinds of things. And so mixed use across the city was allowable. And that's where we have these conflicts. Ackerman is mixed use, but it's also includes residential. So that's the thing, is we need to have the right language, because we're going to have to land with reasonableness, and it can't just be that we don't want to do it there and there, because yeah. So we're working on that. We'll probably come to a work session unless we want to workshop it here a little bit, specifically the language.
I mean, we love getting into semantics here, right?
We know the areas we're looking at initially, but changing those might make us have to rethink some other areas. If there's some, like this place is like that place in all things, why aren't we doing both places? So.
Well, it sounds like you are doing some work internally, and so maybe not the next meeting, but a future meeting, we can look at that.
Okay.
Depending on your timeline.
and would it be helpful, Sarah and Nicole, to, once you have identified the locations, to get those out to the committee so that they can go and take a look prior to that discussion?
Yeah. So we
know
have
what we're
them,
looking
the
at.
ones right now that are definitely on our, on the vision for changing. So we can certainly share that out right now with you guys.
Or would it be easier for the committee to have a full list?
What are you talking about? I hear areas, but I don't know what you're intending to do. Hopefully.
It's all. This is in regards to the city's camping ordinance for folks who are houseless. So if they're camping in a vehicle or motorhome or in a sleeping bag.
Something like that. Often solid waste.
Yeah, we switched.
We were talking about that. You're following.
I didn't change.
No, you're following.
How about anybody else on the committee, things that you're seeing, or maybe someone has spoken to you about? Jim?
One of the reasons I was so poorly prepared was my phone ding, 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 dinged as I was getting ready today. So we'll go through a couple things very quickly. Saturday, March 8th, OBAB is having their cleanup at Toppets. So it's meet at the Upper Lake parking lot. There is an effort underway to build a neighborhood watch in the Empire District, an additional one. And that meeting is supposed to be March 25th at 6 o'clock at the Dolphin. And these are concerns generated by people that live in the Wall Street corridor, South Wall corridor. Specifically about some rather sketchy houses. One on Noble Street, which the chief is probably real familiar with, and camping and trash. So that's coming up. That's Tuesday, March 25th at 6. I had a question asked to me, and then I haven't got a return phone call. There is a property tax abatement program that the city of Coos Bay recently installed in the last 18 months that allows builders that are building 4 or 6 or more, Nicole, units.
It depends on the
Okay.
type and locations.
And what effort, do you know, is the city going to make any effort to put some sort of display up at the home show that says, hey, we're doing this for the traffic that walks through that home show?
That is an excellent opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, and then along that line, which was brought up several times, and once just before this meeting, we have an opportunity to possibly, the city does, even though it's over in Pony Village, to get stuff up in that mall. In terms of reader boards and sandwich signs and just static display stuff, not staffed stuff like you would put at the market or something like that, but just
Like the Adopt the Block.
like Adopt a Block. Okay, and I would rather see $700 spent on some static display that could go up at a community festival, that could go up at something that whose watershed's doing at Mingus, something that doesn't require staffing, doesn't need a volunteer. It's just something that's sandbagged down so the wind doesn't blow it over, and it's an informational kiosk. And that's something that I think might help get the word out.
I love that idea much better. Because also, if we're talking about garbage, 7,660 flyers dispersed in the community become now garbage, which may or may not make it into its intended location. So
Good suggestions. It makes me, as you were talking, it makes me think like there's probably an opportunity for us to understand more about what happens with Neighborhood Watch and where, who is doing what, where. I mean, maybe even just information about what is a Neighborhood Watch.
Well, we can go into this big schematic or the language discussion. Chief, you have 2 neighborhood watch groups in the city. Yeah, I'm in one of them. The other one's East Side. There are other things that are neighborhood watch, but they aren't.
I mean, the official,
Yeah,
not the social media term,
Yeah.
but the official.
yeah.
And I think I haven't been to the Empire Neighborhood Watch. But their goals might be a little varied.
Scott?
Yeah, too official. We'll stick with that one, but opportunities there. I'll change directions and see if I can stir some things. We talked about educating the community a little bit about the livability. And I want to bounce off of Carmen's book about, oh my God, what was that? Happy City.
Mhm.
And a statement made in there, which is about to get me in trouble. Normal communities have 9 parking spots per car. And it appears to be becoming somewhat of a problem as we hear about it more and more. This could be an opportunity to educate through this committee a little bit more about how many parking spots we do have, how many parking spots we think we should have. Should we be moving more towards bicycle? It's a livability issue, I think, that we're dealing with as we pour more and more concrete. So just a potential spot to air that one out in a positive way.
Yeah.
How do we talk about that? We've already got, I don't even know if we know a number. How many parking spots per car?
I don't, but I wrote it down. I'm gonna go ask. There's maybe somebody here who knows that.
Yeah.
I think that we have had the number before.
Yeah.
Ryan, any thoughts?
Well, hearing that about the parking situation, when researching livability, one idea that came up frequently was walkability. Walkability communities are also livability communities because they promote health and community engagement. There's- Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the same conversation, right? Like I think what I hear you saying, Scott, and this could be some holdover from some community meetings recently, is that some awareness around like how much parking is enough parking, and how do we create more walkable spaces so that we can have less dependency on parking. Yeah. John, anything else that comes to mind for you?
No, I appreciate being included here.
Well, glad to help you.
The ideas and the fact that everyone tries to get here every month and contribute.
Yeah.
The deep healing that you've accomplished. Thank you all.
Chief,
I don't have anything in addition to add.
thanks.
Mm.
Harv?
Yeah, I'm looking at that whole effort that was done with the safe routes to school. And, they came up with a tremendous number of recommendations, some very, very useful, and some that realistically, I think the Parks Commission kind of said, well, not immediate priority, but we don't want to lose that concept. And that's kind of like, I take a look at what was invested there and the product that came out, and I look at that whole infrastructure issue, and that's just a small part. It's kind of like if something like that was a little bit bigger or covered other areas, I can, if you really talk about livability, that I think was a major step for those small areas. There's something along those lines. I think has some merit. It took some outside funding, it took some outside consultants, but the product in the end, I think is going to be very useful to the community.
So was there a report done?
It's been presented at the Parks Commission, the recommendations. And usually from that point, if you guys have decided anything for pushing forward to council, then it comes forward to council.
Yeah, I think the commission did recommend in terms of the priorities. I think there's like 20 or 25 ideas for like each school, some pedestrian, some bicycle, but all about getting the kids safely to school. But just probably altogether in that report, probably 50 pretty decent recommendations that came
Nice.
out of that exercise.
I look forward to seeing that. I know you were on that, right, Scott? Yeah, yeah. David, how about you?
I experienced a livability issue that I'm pretty sure other people have experienced as well. I'm working on the undeveloped right of way called Flanagan Street near my property. It was going really well until someone said there needs to be a tree study accomplished on there before you can touch any of the trees. And I was like, really? Yeah. And I said, well, okay, what's the timeline? Well, they don't meet they meet every quarter. And I was like, I'd like to do this next Saturday. So needless to say, a professional forester wrote a member of the staff here, and they discussed it between them and they said, no, that's probably not necessary. I don't know that everyone has access to a forester to get that accomplished that quickly. But at the end of the day, I have a bad taste in my mouth from the state of California, who came onto a property that Salvation Army owned, and they put a little silver tag on every tree in there. From that point forward, we couldn't even cut a branch off of it without their permission, and having several people come out. I don't know if that's the case here. I don't know what that means. I didn't experience it, but I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that there's maybe some little things that make it hard for people to get things done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great thing to bring up here. I know we had a strategic planning session recently and talked about reducing barriers to progress. So that's a great
And
one.
we're doing some internal work right now. That's our work we're doing with HUD. We got a grant. I don't even know how much it is. It's just like technical assistance. A piece of that is reviewing our internal processes and procedures as they face outward, and how we make things easier for the other side of the counter than our side. And then also maybe reducing some of that so
Yeah.
that there is less barriers. It's easier for people to do work in the city of Coos Bay.
So let's keep bringing those up as knowing that that's happening internally within the city, but those specific examples are really helpful to think about. We've got about a minute left. Stephanie, anything from you?
No, I think this is great.
It's a great list. Yeah.
This shows why we do this. These are things that I hadn't thought of.
That's great.
Can I say one
Yes,
thing to the
please.
group?
Yeah.
Oftentimes, maybe you guys as members of this committee, you receive these complaints and concerns as well, but in relation to our John Toppitz Park area, so I was just going to report back to the group that I had scheduled 2 officers on some overtime, a detail to walk through the park from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And just do kind of a mapping of camps and illegal campers in the parks. And so they did that. We have another one scheduled in a couple weeks to do a follow-up. But the information I got back, they walked through it for almost 4 hours, 2 of them, and they did not find any active camps in the park. They did find a few abandoned camps. And so I know that you also mentioned OBAB is going to be in there cleaning it up. So if they do come across occupied camp, let us know. We can assist in posting it and dealing with that. But that's good news. There's at this point, no active illegal camps in the John Toppitz Park area.
I can share that different hat, my Southwestern Oregon Workforce Investment hat. SOIB is partnering with Southwestern Oregon Community College to start phase 1 of reviving the trail system on SWAC that of course connects with Toppitz. There may have been some concerns about that, but I think have been working with you to help prepare us to be able to bring those youth crews in to revive those trails. But that is going to also help Toppitz and having those trails back in service and beautified is gonna, having use is going to help eliminate people camping, we assume. So some exciting stuff happening around Toppets Park. Yeah.
And we also, the city received a grant from the Forest Service for a defensible space. So we'll be doing some work to come in and do, shrubbing essentially. It's going to be perimeter, so it's all of the property that would be close to built out environment, making sure that if there was fires, it's can be confined before it gets over to the built out environment. That's going to be happening in the next couple of months, I think. So
Great.
that will help too.
Great. Really good stuff. Thank you. Our next meeting is in March. I think it's the 27th off the top of my head. Don't quote me. Christine, I'm sure we'll send out reminders. Thanks, everyone.